Hello, it's Denise from Women Beyond a Certain Age. We have a special guest today, my friend, Chef Aliza Green. And here's the reason I say a special friend, because we met so many years ago and our careers have overcrossed and done all sorts of in and out and IACP. And also, I don't remember which conference it was, but you were a keynote speaker at a conference that I was at. I may have been speaking on something else, but it wasn't IACP, and you were fabulous. And that's what I remember really getting to know you a little bit. So welcome.
Well, thank you, Denise. It's really wonderful to see you and wonderful to be a guest on your show. I'm honored.
Well, you look marvelous, as we say in Hollywood.
Ooh, thank you.
And of course, we're silver foxes. We try to lose it, but we can't because we've got it. That's what I say.
That's right.
You know what? I don't care what age you are. If you've got it, you've got it. Now, so madam, I follow you on Facebook, but I need to tell, and I have to say this up front, and I'll say it again at the end. I get your newsletter. And your newsletter is fabulous. So just so people know, and it's alizagreen.com, right? That's what.
Yes, okay. It's ALIZA green like the color.com. People can sign up for my newsletter through that.
And so
that's I'd love to have more people do that.
Well, I got one today. So, and I sent it to Cindy so that she would have it also. So when she does our little advertising for this, you give people a recipe, you give people some culture, you give people information about your culinary tours that we'll talk about. But one of the word that I love that you use in your newsletter is a pioneer woman chef. And this is the truth. This is the truth. So we have to ask you how you got into cooking and when you went to culinary school or when you became a chef, and tell us a little bit about your early days.
Yeah, the early days seem quite a long time ago now, but I do have an interesting story. I would say that I had a childhood where I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time traveling through my father's work. He was a scientist. Oh. And he did taught in different places, conferences, fellowship, and he was actually a theoretical physicist, very far from being a chef. That I followed nothing of his, but I got the taste for travel, and I got the taste for learning about cultures, and food was a way of doing that. And there's some kind of knack that I had, because even my very early memories, so many of them have to do with food, very strong memories. And by the time I was about 11, I was already cooking for my family. Wow. So there was something that was leading me in that direction. I did not really think about it as a career. I was more, I'm going to go to college. I had this academic background. I was a good student. But when I got into school, I kind of realized that I didn't have a direction. I had been doing a lot of traveling in the 5 years up until that, really exploring the world and loving it. And I thought, well, what is the thing that I love to do when I spend all of my time doing? 3 things: reading books, traveling, and cooking. So I decided that I would leave school for a year, try to find a job cooking, and see if I liked it. And if not, I would go back. So this was in the mid 70s. And I did some private catering on my own to try to learn more and, get a little more experience, but I did not go to culinary school. It was also at a time when really the only school that was around was the Culinary Institute of America.
I'm sure.
Almost no women, and very much oriented to continental, very classic Escoffier kind of formal food. That was not my thing at all. So, but it was also at a time when in Philadelphia, but in many other cities, we were having an incredible culinary renaissance, where restaurants were opening up left and right. A lot of countercultural people, I would identify with Alice Waters as being one, kind of in that vein. Many of the people that opened restaurants in those years, especially the women, kind of came to it from this countercultural standpoint. And I was like that. So there was a lot of opportunity. There was, it's expanding field. So it was difficult. It took me about a year of knocking on doors and people laughing at me, what do you, women, we're not going to hire you. You don't have this or that. But eventually I got a break. And that's one point that I really strongly want to make, is that everybody needs a little bit of help from somebody. Absolutely. Everybody needs to give help. Everybody needs to get help. So I heard from a friend that kind of third hand that this couple was opening a restaurant. They were in the first class of the Philadelphia Restaurant School, which opened to have people open storefront restaurants. And I knew that they were opening. I wrote them this kind of impassioned letter, why they should hire me, and they did. And it was a fantastic opportunity because I got to do all the testing with them and open this small place, work every station. And really from there, I went on to, I went to other kinds of restaurants. I kept wanting to learn, looking for people that had something to teach me, because there was only so far more I could go on my own. And then again, I got another break where I was the sous chef in a restaurant, a Northern Italian restaurant, a wonderful restaurant that had recently opened. And the chef and the owner had a falling out 6 weeks after the restaurant, 250-seat restaurant, by the way, had a falling out, and that person lost their job. And the owner called me up one night and said, can you come and meet me at the London Bar and Grill, 11 o'clock. I'm like, oh, what is he wants to, pass on me, or, what's going on here? I said, okay. I went over there, and he and the owner and the director of the restaurant offered me the job. And I said, no. I said, I don't have management experience. I can't do this job. It was really jumping in at the deep end. But eventually they convinced me that they would help me. And I thought that if I didn't, I should give it a try. And I did. And I spent 6 years there. It was, wow. Took a lot out of me. There's always a high price. But I also studied Italian. I had a 2-hour private Italian class once a week for 5 years. I went to Italy every year so that I could learn from the people there. I could read Italian books. At that time, there were very few Italian cookbooks in English. I wanted to read La Cucina Italiana in the original. And, just that whole culture, I just loved it. And I know we're going to talk about my tours later on, but I'm getting ready to go on Friday on my Sicily culinary tour. So back to Italy for me, which puts me in a happy place. Anyway, so I had quite a few, I had a long years. I had some very prominent restaurants where I was a chef. Another one was Apropos, that was kind of California style, when all the California restaurants were just really inspiring me. And I'd go out to San Francisco and I'd see all these women at the front in the kitchens. Yeah. And, it was always open kitchens. At least 50% of them had women. And that just absolutely, blew my mind that this could be, because I was so alone in my position. The constant battles and, people trying to get rid of me and, what do you call it? Depose me, I guess is the word. So, and then I was a partner at also a very prominent restaurant called the White Death Cafe. Judy Wicks is quite an activist in the culinary field, but also social activist. And I did that until, I did it until then I got pregnant. Kind of had to choose, am I going that way, going to have kids or not have kids? And somehow this is something that, I don't know, I got that hunger. I got I have to have a baby. And I did, it had already a strong career, but I did that work until my son was about 2. And it became, for an example, and this is what women go through, which is just, it's insane. I'm the one that drove from work to the hospital to have my son. I was at work on the line at 9 p.m. He was born at 2 a.m. That tells you how close that I cut that. Then I had a babysitter that would come, and there was a room near the kitchen at the White Dog, and she would be with my son, and I would run off the line, go nurse him, and then go run back to the line. And so I did this, it was nuts. It was absolutely nuts. And after at the end of a year, I really felt that I had to make a change, that I couldn't continue. Plus, then I got pregnant again. I had a daughter, and I moved into always stayed in food, but moved into all kinds of other aspects of the food industry.
But see, there's several things I have to make a point. And we have younger women. I don't know why, but we have younger women listen to our podcast because they reach out to me. And a lot of them are in food, or a lot of them are young mothers whose career is now in limbo. Do you know what I mean? Because they're at home. So yes. I think your words, there's a couple of points. One, what I really hear as you talk about, like taking over the job that you didn't think you were qualified for, and then staying there 6 years. That's just plain perseverance and determination. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that's just not giving up. And then studying Italian and really learning your craft. And I think that these are such important points. Sometimes when Cindy and I would take interns in the last few years of my business, the interns would say things because they washed dishes, they took the garbage out, they were supposed to go to the grocery store and pay buy $600 and carry it back, and they were supposed to make 3 dozen perfect cookies that all matched. Do you know what I mean? No, it was not exciting work. Do you know what I mean? But right. That's what the job entailed. And sometimes they would say to me after 2 or 3 months, well, when will I move up? I said, what do you mean? They said, well, when will I be the lead stylist? And I said, well, probably after you've worked for 10 years and handled every kind of situation there is and learned the whole management, because what food styling really is managing your clients' expectations, because you're a food stylist, not a magician. I mean, so everything you touched on is so similar. And I also, when I was in catering, I was still in childbearing years. And I got the executive chef job. It's very similar to yours. I mean, I do say this to people, and when I would speak, I'd say, the good news about the restaurant business or the food business is someone's always quitting. So if you're good, they're gonna move you up. You can get moved up quicker you'll never move up this fast at IBM as you can in the restaurant or the food.
So true. There's always going to be an opportunity for that person that's hungry to move up.
That's it. I'd say the chef either has a drug problem, too many girlfriends, or he drinks at lunch. Trust me, you're going to get a break. I love that you just grabbed it and took it. And also, but talking about children, when I was still in catering, I had a boyfriend, but I remember thinking, because it was my kitchen, I was the executive chef. We did multi-million dollars in business. And I had this beautiful big commissary. And I remember for a moment, I thought I could have a playpen in the corner. Do you know what I mean? And I thought, I don't know how good that is for the baby, but I would not leave my baby alone. The baby would be with me here in the kitchen a lot. So, but it's a very hard, it's working on the line, and having children is pretty damn hard. There is no getting around that. And men don't usually have to make that decision. That's the difference, one of the main differences. But I love that you had 2 children, and then you realized that you could still make a career in food, but you didn't have to be on the line.
Yes. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about what I transitioned into.
Please tell us now.
So one thing is I got involved with some different culinary organizations. It was American Institute of Wine and Food, IACP, Les Dames d'Escoffier. I felt that I needed to learn how organizations worked. And so I got involved with some fundraisers. Share Our Strength was another one, all of which gave me very, very good experience, which led to a lot of, and the network, absolutely, a fantastic network. And then eventually I did a lot of consulting for restaurants, food companies, hotels, but I also started writing. And I had written a very nice article for a program book for an event that we had put on. And the editor of the Daily News, Philadelphia Daily News, saw it and offered me a column. So I did a weekly food column there for, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years. And then I wanted to move up to the other newspaper, the Philadelphia Inquirer. And I went after that, and eventually I did get to do a weekly column there. I had columns for fine cooking and for clean eating and for Prevention magazine. So fair amount of writing. And that led to, one of my goals from the beginning was to be able to write cookbooks.
Yes.
So I had, along with the writing, I started doing food styling, television food styling. And this is also about opportunity knocks, and you don't know where it's going to come from. So one day I get a call from somebody that said, I have a client coming to Philadelphia to be on QVC. They're going to be here the day after tomorrow. I need food for this show. Can you do it? I'd never done anything like that. I knew nothing about it. I said yes. So I prepared the food for that, and that turned into, 6 or 7 years of doing hundreds of shows in a year, all having to do mostly with the cookbook authors, but some of them having to do with food products and things like that. It was all live television. My restaurant experience was fantastic for that, because I already knew how to think on my feet and how to make decisions. And you have to be able to, you don't know what's going to be. Anything can happen when you're on live television. And so you're going to be prepared, but there's always going to be the unexpected.
When you and I have talked about this once, we talked about this. People didn't realize, and was amazing to me. In the early days of QVC, and I remember you telling me how you got the phone call and you went. Mine was, all my clients did infomercials, huge infomercials. So when QVC showed up, my clients in LA, these huge production companies, said, hey, we're going to go to QVC, Denise. I didn't even know what QVC was. Do you know what I mean? But this is early. This is like, and if you remember, and I know you knew, but I got there the very first time, they didn't even have a table for me. Do you know what I mean? I mean,
right.
There was no kitchen. Now you go, it's the temple. Do you know what I mean? With style, kitchens and prop stands. So I got there, and luckily our product, it was one of the very first ones. It was a grill. So we had our product there. I had to go to the store. They sent me in a limousine to go buy hot dogs and hamburgers. And then they had no china, they had no props. So I bought paper plates and a paper tablecloth and some sunflowers. So I made it look as nice as I possibly could. I think I slept in the warehouse, because even though they got me a hotel room and I was eating, I was kind of like, you'd see a green room and there might be a celebrity, or I'd see employee food and I would just steal something like a dog. I was stealing other people's sandwiches.
Right off the table.
Right off their table. I assumed I wouldn't get, but I remember I had to work all night long to get the food ready, and I'm cooking on a burner. But my favorite was at one point, and do you remember? And then they got a little better. And then one of the times I went, it was still so new. I would say to people, I'm going, and you had to get to Philadelphia, but then it took 2 hours to get to King of Prussia or whatever this.
Yeah, it was far.
Far.
Yeah, very out of the way.
And people would say, what is it, Denise? I said, it's the shopping channel. And I remember that people made fun of it until you realize that they were doing like $5 million a year. And cookbook authors, like you said, I went with one or two from LA. I remember one, I wasn't her assistant that day, but I was there at the same time. Julia Child only went on QVC once or twice. Julia Child came off stage and everybody said, are you okay? Because she looked stunned, because she had sold 18,000 books in like 7 minutes. And she said, I sold 18,000 books in 7 minutes. Well, all of a sudden QVC looked a little better to her. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's true. And people would sell, there were some of the authors, there were people that QVC wanted to promote for whatever reason, and they would put them on, one after another. But over $1 million of cookbook sales in one day. That's the numbers were just absolutely insane. People had never heard of such a thing. One of those times when staggering is right. One of the times that Julia Child was on there, I did her styling. That was a little bit later. But the most incredible time I ever had there was IACP was in Philadelphia.
Yes.
I don't remember the year, maybe 95, somewhere around then, the food conference. So all of these big shots from across the country were coming to the city, and they all booked on QVC, and they all hired me. So I had 13 authors in 1 week. I made 160 different dishes in 1 week. I had everybody that I knew working with me, you know, in my kitchen, on the, you know, the dining room table, on the floor, buying more, going out there, coming back, going. It was absolutely insane. But anyway, I learned a lot. I met a lot of amazing people. And it also led to me being able to write the books, because that kind of gave me the income while I was trying to get established as a cookbook author. Absolutely. And again, I had an opportunity. There was quite a famous French chef in Philadelphia, Georges Perrier. He had Le Bec Fin restaurant. He was he was really the guy in French food in Philly, and he has a street named after him. So he had actually offered me a chef job, a cook's job, years before. And I was very torn. I didn't know whether to go work for him in the French, classic French kitchen, or go work and be the executive chef of this California style grill, fresh restaurant. I went to the California one because I decided I'd been in charge too much. It would be too difficult for me to go back to, being a line cook. But, part of me, thought about something that I could have missed. In any case, I knew that he respected me as a chef, and he asked me to co-author his cookbook. So I worked on that book, and he also appeared on QVC, so I got to do his work for that. It was a wonderful experience. We both, got a lot out of it. I have absolutely nothing, bad. The book was beautiful. It sold really well. And then that really opened the door to me for the publisher. Of course, I knew I'd have to take whatever they offered me as far as pay. I would have to take, because there were 50 other people lined up that wanted to do the same book, because he was, such a prestigious person to work with. So I did that. And then after that, I wrote my first book, which was The Bean Bible. And The Bean Bible came out in 2000. And still something that I'm very proud of, and, will go on. But I've done 15 books, and I'm working on my next book project right now, which goes back to something about, it's another story about being open to opportunity, and that you never know when that opportunity, where it's going to come from. So I was working on a book called The Field Guide to Meat. It was part of a little series, very nice books. There's Field Guide to Meat, produce, herbs and spices, and produce. Produce was the first one. So I decided I needed to learn more about meat, and I went to take this intensive course at Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas. And while I was there was a bunch of people from the Caribbean. The U.S. government sent them there because it was a time of mad cow, and they were afraid that they didn't want them to buy South American beef. They wanted them to buy American beef. So they sent all these people. They were F&B directors, food and beverage directors, and supermarket managers to this course. And I happened to sit next to this gentleman at one of the dinners. He was from Aruba. And he started talking to me. He said, well, he was very into food, former restaurateur, sommelier, very accomplished. And he said he wanted to do a book about the food of Aruba. And I said, I could do that. At the time I had 2 or 3 books, whatever it was, but I spoke up. And I ended up making 8 trips there, wrote the cookbook, was published in Venezuela. It was never sold in America. It was only sold through the restaurants on the island. But it did win a Gourmand Prize, and, it was a big accomplishment. And then to take it around to today, and there's a lot of time, lots of other things happen in between, including starting the tours, which I know we'll go back to. I got a phone call about 6 months ago that he and a chef friend, who I didn't expect to ever hear from,
sure,
things a long time goes by. He and a very prominent chef there decided they wanted to do another book, and they asked me if I would do that. So I've already been down there twice. I was there in January. I just came back last week, meeting with the chefs, watching, with the photographer, with getting the recipes, and I'm going down there in another month, back again. So it's something that came back again that I never expected would do that. but we had a wonderful relationship to begin with, and there it is.
And you did a good job.
Now.
And you did a good
Well,
job.
I did a good job. I did a good job.
This is something when people, for longevity in your career, do you know what I mean? And perseverance and determination and not giving up, because there's good times, there's bad times. But I think that's absolutely amazing. But several things you said, the opportunity, I've sat next to people that changed my life at a dinner. Do you know what I mean? At least it changed my life because they maybe said something to me and I thought, oh, I never thought of that. But the other thing is, and this is for cookbook authors, because we have a lot of cookbook authors that listen to us, and they make comments or they send me private messages. See, I think being a co-author or writing a celebrity cookbook, not only is it sometimes more money than you get for your own book, do you know what I mean? But you get so many connections from that book. You get so much business if that book sells well. And people used to say to me, why do you write other people's cookbooks? And I didn't write them all alone. Do you know what I mean? But if Cindy and I did the 150 recipes for them, but then we got the styling and then we fed the pantry list or different things to a hired writer, we were charging them 6 figures by the time we were finished. Do you know what I mean? It took a year. But people would say, well, why would you do that? I'd say, because I can't sell 1 million books in 1 month on HSN or QVC, but my name's in that book. So
That's right.
A whole lot of people are going to see my name and the thank you and the acknowledgement. So that's why you do it. So I think that's gotten, and that's part of, I mean, publishing is in such, publishing is, I don't want to say it's in disarray, but it's like anything. It's mountain building. Things are changing. Traditional publishing houses are not doing as well. Blogging changed. Publishing, like it changed many things, because everybody thinks they are a publisher because they publish their blog. And, and that's great. It's entrepreneurial. I think it's wonderful. But I also think that they lose some opportunities because they're used to being the leader, and they don't realize that sometimes when you're not the leader, but you're in the front seat, you learn a whole lot.
Well, the more you can be exposed to, if you're, open-minded, and you're, not open-minded, but your ears are open.
Yes.
You're always going to be learning. And I've just had so many examples of this. I was at the IECP conference, and I decided to go to a food style. I was in Baltimore, maybe 2004. My field guide to produce had just came out, and lucky for me, the New York Times covered it just during the conference. So, that was, couldn't have been better timing. But I decided to go to it was a media workshop, media training workshop. So while I was there, a gentleman came up to me at the end and said, I saw, about your book, this Field Guide to Produce. I'm the marketing director for this produce company. We'd like to hire you to be, do product representation, develop recipes, go on television and, media for the product. And it was, again, an amazing experience. I did that for, I don't know, quite a number of years, 4 or 5 years, as long as, everything has a lifetime. But had I not gone to that, I haven't, it wouldn't have happened.
That's
right.
So
I think that the food business in particular is really full of these opportunities, because most food people are gregarious. They're kind of bon vivants. That's why they go into that business. They like to travel. They like to talk to people. They want to, they're creative.
They like to have fun.
And
food people are
they
fun.
Want to have fun. They're fun. And they like to make connections. So, there's this kind of thing, as much as it's changed, and you and I have seen enormous changes, through the years, through the decades, but there's still something about the type of person that's attracted to that business.
I agree.
Which means that, that one that you talk to, maybe they're going to call you, somebody, or maybe they know somebody, or maybe something will happen. And I think I want to make the point that for women, especially, we have to be open to opportunity, because we're often not going to have the opportunity through the straight and narrow is not going to provide that. We're going to have to, think outside the box, all those kinds of things, especially if you're, going to have children, or there's other kinds of things. You're just not going to, of course, there's much more, many more people, going to culinary school and things like that. But I think that we really need, many women invent their own jobs. Tommy, you did that, didn't you?
Well, you know what?
That's
absolutely. I had no choice, kind of. I worked in a couple of restaurants in San Francisco because I wanted to understand after culinary school, because I had never worked in the restaurant industry before I went to culinary school. And in those days, that was actually a prerequisite at the CCA where I went to. But I had such strong letters of recommendations from a client, and I'd also I'd managed a real estate company, that they said, well, okay, and so they let me in. But in those days, you really had to, they didn't let most people in. It wasn't just an issue of paying the tuition. You really had to qualify. So I got in, and of course, then I realized that it was being a chef was nothing that I thought it was. and that I was unprepared for the entire industry. But so when I got out of school, I worked in several restaurants, and I totally did it so I would understand how the food got from the back door out onto the client, to the table.
The plate.
And the reason, and also because I was good with money and good with figures and good with percentages, because I'd been in real estate. The biggest mistakes I saw in kitchen, it was never the food, it was the mismanagement, and that they didn't have a clue how much money it cost on the plate. So then when I got the chance to be an executive chef, when I moved up, because the chef literally just one day was snorting cocaine in his car and forgot to come into the work. And it happened about a dozen times. And that day they actually fired him. And I remember thinking, okay, we're headed in the right direction. But
oh my goodness.
Computers were just starting. Programs for kitchens were just starting. And we got an influx of money into the catering company. And I said, but I did it all with pen and paper and pen, and a calculator. But I said to people, this is all about money. You know what I mean? This isn't about talent. We want a famous chef, or you want to do this, and we want good food, but all these restaurants fail because they don't make any money.
Correct.
And so then after after that, and I loved it, and I loved the business part of it, and I loved cooking the food, but then I was able to work for 2 or 3 of the biggest restaurant consultants. You'd know his name. I can't. Bill DeMaine and Rudy Mick, and these guys hired me, and all I did was work with the kitchen staff. Do you know what I mean? All I did was show them if we measured the steak and cut the steak to 6 ounces, and how we do things, and write their recipes for them. So I did that for a number of years, and I loved it. And then then I became a food stylist, and then I went into writing books, and the same, very similar progression, because
very similar.
And I'm so grateful, because I loved every minute of it. Do you know what I mean? But and I'm so grateful now. I want people to know, we will, of course, have all the information up. Miss Cindy, when we go to broadcast this, we'll put how to reach Aliza and how her website, again, we'll repeat it. And we're going to ask her to come back for a part 2 to talk about your trips. Now, I want to go on your trip to Portugal in 2023. So I have to look at that and get my dollars together, because that trip looks so fabulous. And I have been to Portugal once. I was by myself, but it's so easy to navigate there, and it's so gorgeous. But I want to go with you, and your tours look fabulous. So people that are listening, know that there's going to be a part 2, and we're going to talk about culinary tours. And I cannot thank you enough for joining us today.
Well, this is so much fun. And it's like we're on the opposite coast, but we have had so many connections in our careers. It's phenomenal.
Crisscross.
It's crisscrossed.
And
it's
you know
fantastic.
It's so wonderful because, like you, several women from IACP that became friends, the mentors that I had from IACP, do you know what I mean? Julia, Ann Willen, Irina Chalmers. I mean, and I say this to people, and I know that groups are, so many of the conferences are struggling. I think it's wonderful that we can get everybody. People say, oh, you don't need these conferences anymore because you can just email people. But I try to say to people, when you have eaten with someone at lunch, and then you later on may have a glass of wine with them in another, part of the conference. I said, that person and you can trust that person and you decide if you like that person, but it's so different. It's a different bond. And very lucky.
We have to talk about the power of serendipity.
Yes.
And that is something that you're going to have in a conference or some other kinds of event that you go to. It's just not the same as that, email, Facebook, Insta, direct message, whatever, all of them, not the same.
Thank you so much for today. Now, people can reach us at Women Beyond at iCloud.com. People go to our Facebook page, Women Beyond a Certain Age. On Facebook, we have a website. It's Women Beyond a Certain Age.com. And in the very near future, we're adding a new page to our website, and it's going to be my memoir in pieces, because as Cindy knows, I've only written, 1,000 pages of memoir. And you know what? It's not concise and it doesn't go in order. And you know what I've decided? I don't think it has to. So I'm gonna put it up in different pieces at a time. And if people don't like it, they don't have to read it. I'm so tired. I have a great agent, and we sent it out and had a big bid from Ingram for about a week, and then they dumped me like a hot potato right before COVID and said, nah, you're not famous enough for you to write this book. I said, okay, thank you so much. I wanted to hear that today. But then afterwards, I thought to myself, I don't care what those other people think. I'm doing it for me. So,
right.
I have no choice. So anyway, but please, people, reach out, and you reach out to Aliza when she's up. And I totally tell people, and I mean this, get her newsletter, because there's your Tagine recipe was what I saw today. It looked delicious. So thank you.
Yes, the Moroccan chicken tagine is beautiful. That's a beautiful dish.
Beautiful.
After doing 4 tours there, I did learn a thing or two about Moroccan cooking. So, and I'm a person that loves to share. It makes me happy to share what I know and to make other people, be able to make delicious food for themselves and have these wonderful experiences.
I thank you so much. And as always, I thank Cindy, who keeps the train on the tracks, because Cindy is OCD. And I'm ADD. So you put us together and you get a perfect force. We're a wonderful team. Thank you. And I'm going to talk to you again soon. And thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, I told you she was going to be a fantastic